My name is Alex, and you're welcome to my podcast. Mainly, my podcast is open. Tells people the things. As we live in this world, we have things we believe in. Sometimes it hurts when you find that the things you believe in, they are made up, or they are not realistic, or you don't even know where they came from. So you don't know the origin of what the things you believe in. So it's always good to highlight the source of or the origin of some things, and also to bring evidence. So mainly it is to enlighten people's view of understanding, and also to let them choose for themselves, or to tap on the source, to tap on that button, then they can do research for themselves.
Okay.
So what we say should not be taken as absolute truth. If someone wants to really consider what we say on the podcast, should go deep and they should research for themselves, but they should be in the line of what we say.
Agreed.
Yeah. So introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Well, hello, my name is Moto House, Duke Nathaniel Frazier, a few other things. But I'm the owner of House Turnout Recordings, house and techno record label. I started in Ibiza 2014, so it's our 10-year anniversary this year. Interestingly, I'm a music producer and DJ, and I guess entrepreneur, truth seeker, and somebody that really does not like being lied to. Since I was very young, I have looked for facts. I would rather, like I say many times, I'd rather be stabbed with the truth or cut with the truth than be killed by lies, because lies actually kill. And there's we can see all the things that go on in the world, from more recently the stuff that's going on in Gaza, to Ukraine and Russia situation, and the whole COVID thing, and blah blah blah, the vaccination, it is nonstop. There's so much going on, and it's multi-pronged, and it's multi-leveled. There's so many plans within plans within plans that have been enacted by years, if not decades, and some in centuries of planning, which is it's amazing, and it's hard for a lot of people to grasp, because they're busy with their work, they're busy with their life, etc., etc. And I guess I've been lucky with my choice of career and just circumstance in the world of who I am, and my experiences as a young guy, a child growing up in Western Canada, being mixed race and stuff, that I always had to ask questions that I felt that I wasn't getting correct answers for. And also, I'm blessed to have wonderful parents, my mom and my dad, that have, being a mixed race couple. My dad's from England, my mom's from Louisiana, and so they have very different upbringings, very different cultures, and they found each other in Victoria, British Columbia, and Canada, fell in love, and are still married to this day. And every time I asked them, what's this or what's that, they would point at the wall of books and encyclopedias and say, look it up. And it used to drive me mental, okay, because it was, a young kid. The last thing you want to do is have to do a lot of work. In that sense, you just want the answer. Everybody wants the bite size, just, give me the answer. And like you said, if we don't understand the source of why these things are these things, then just having the truth isn't enough, because when you try to tell people the truth, you start to realize how much indoctrination and how much deception has gone on for a very long time, multiple generations, that people are convinced about something, and it's very difficult for them to even accept something that might ruin the narrative that they believed to be true. Yeah. So it's like this, I've looked at a lot of things, and even if we say, for example, the whole thing with, I'm going to start with something that they're going to look at as taboo, but I'm going to make something first very clear. When I did my DNA, my brother did first, of course, and we found out we were part Ashkenazi, and we were always told that we were part Native American on my mother's side, and that her grandmother had died when her mother was 3 years old, and she was raised by her aunt, who was the Johnson family, funnily enough, in Louisiana. And we didn't know, we thought we were Native American. And when we found out we were Ashkenazi, I didn't even know what the hell that was. I was like, what's an Ashkenazi? And my dad's like, oh, it's Jewish. And because he's white, we looked at him like, you're Jewish? He's like, no, mate, I'm Scottish and English and Nordic. I know we are trust. I'm like, it's true, they keep meticulous records, right? But my mom coming from Louisiana, you know, there's a lot of slavery that went on in America for 440 odd years. And it's like the records of where we come from, who we are, religious beliefs, languages, culture, everything was just completely erased. So it was growing up before we even found this out, because I only found this out, man, maybe 4 years ago or 5 years. Well, with my brother, it was like 2017 or something like this. So we were like baffled, like, well, why? Okay, so that woman was Jewish, the only way, right? I guess, but she was, because there was no Native American in the DNA. So my mom, my dad got theirs done, and we found out that it's my mom. So we're like, well, you have no Native American in all these different African, but also she was like part Scottish, part Welsh, Irish, German, Nordic, Swedish, and Danish. So we're like, how do you have all that in you? Mm-hmm. But I'm good at mathematics, and I'm good at, you know, harmonics and balance, mm-hmm. right? Because of music stuff. You know, I've been a music producer 27 years professionally. I've done almost 3,000 songs, you know, so we're trying to, I know ballads, yeah. It's like, yeah. So I did the math on the percentages that were given. And it was like, well, the only way that I see the actual balance of this is when a family does things with kind of royal decree of keeping power. And I know this because, you know, on my father's side, I'm a Fraser, and very particular family, do your research on it, not the Z-I-E-R, but the F-R-A-S-E-R, Highland of Lovett, Scotland, aye laddie. Anyway, so I knew how to do the math, and I was like, this looks heraldic, this looks like how the royal families do it, but with the Ashkenazi Jew being the largest percentage on her and of that grouping, but all the other ones on the Caucasian side equaled the same as the 12% or whatever Ashkenazi. So it's 12% in like 1%, 1%, 2%, 1%, and it all equaled 12, and this is 12, 24, 25%. 25% means that not her mother was full, but her mother was half, and her mom was light skinned, you know, and then that means that her mother must have been the person that was Jewish, because she's the only one in the bloodline that we don't have, like, you know, memory and access to, right? So I'm part Ashkenazi Jew, so what I'm about to say next, can't say nothing. We're gonna have some fun today, homie. Wait, I mean, it's not his mistake for fucking bringing me here, but yeah, don't blame him. I'm a different kind of thing. Yeah, you can't kill what can't be killed, just so you know, huh? Many have tried, I've never died. Anyway, so let's go to some current event stuff. And by the way, I found out who my great-grandmother was, and I don't know if I should say it here because we have to still go and take certain things. I'm just
curious of who she was.
She was the Grand Duchess of Luxembourg, who went to Louisiana during the First World War because she was going to a place where they held lands and power, right? And the reason that they held land and power there is because the Louisiana is called this, whether or not it's in the American history books, who knows, not a lot proper real information is. It's all a bunch of bollocks, yeah? And just like most history books everywhere, it's his story. My story is a mystery, her story is heresy, apparently. You know? Probably the most important is the story from the women, for real. So anyway, yeah, she was the Grand Duchess of Luxembourg, who was, I guess, heir apparent because her father and her mother still were alive. Why did she go to Louisiana? Well, because Louisiana is truly named after King Louis of France and Grand Duchess Anna of Luxembourg. And they held the largest portion of the North American slave trade for 350 years. This is how the kings and stuff of France and the country of Luxembourg became so rich. They're worth billions and billions of dollars because of their stake in the slave trade in North America. And as digging and learning, I found out that the Ashkenazi Jewish communities that are not Hebrew, okay, they don't have bloodline or DNA at all in the Holy Land whatsoever. All of their blood comes from Eastern Europe. They come from a band of people called the Khazarians, who held a nation, very big empire actually, south of Russia, upwards towards Ukraine, between the Black and Caspian Seas. And the north of the Black and Caspian Sea is where you have the Silk Road. and this was the trading route for Europe to Asia, right? And they were known as the road bandits, the murderers, the impersonators, etc., etc., that dealt with a lot of black magic, because they were the people that would impersonate and rob and murder the people that are merchants and traveling on the Silk Road. So say if a regiment from Italy is taking the Silk Road, northern Italy, and they take the Silk Road, and they would stop in those seas to fill up their waters, right? Of course, normal. Right? Fertile land, etc. But then they'd get these peoples that would be like, oh, welcome, oh, weary traveler, come, we feed you, we house you, you want whatever. And they're like, wow, we're super awesome. But then in the middle of the night, after learning their language, after learning where they're going, who they were, what they were doing, their trade, everything, they ritualistically hunt and kill them, drinking their children's blood and shit, because they were practicing what? Babylonian blood magic, right? They worship Baal. Baal is kind of like the manifestation of whether you believe biblically or not, it's kind of irrelevant. People call them all sorts of aliens and Anunnaki or whatever else, but it's like you have the bloodline, the fallen angels, biblically. And I didn't grow up religious. I grew up with the art of war, so you guys know out there, because I look at the Bible as looking in a schematic of things, although I do believe in God and Christ and all this very much, but only because of mathematics. We get into that later. However, the really interesting thing is that these people, they worshipped Baal. And who is Baal? Baal is the bull, right? The big muscular satanic thing with the head of a bull. And they would do blood sacrifices to Baal through the mouth of Modoc, this whole thing. Why? Well, because Baal is essentially what the fallen and the Nephilim, especially the fallen, they were the ones that bred with the bloodline of Cain after Cain was kicked out, right? So them and the Nephilim bred with the bloodline of Cain, right? As well as animals and all this other crap. And they became Babylon. And so the kings of Babylon, after Babylon was destroyed, that bloodline, the descendants of them, became the Khazarian Empire as they fled north, right? From Babylon. And some west and some east, but mostly north, right? They worship Baal because Baal is basically, if you think about the war in heaven, right, based on biblical text, right, if you take it as a story and we're looking at the canon of it, whether you want to take it literally or not, doesn't matter. Let's stay in the confines of this. Is that is the last time that the fallen angels that's the last time they saw Lucifer, was when he was waging war. And before Michael felled him, pretty much last, the fallen had all been cast away and killed and this, that, and the other. So they're seeing the leader of their pack, the general of their army, who they called the bull, Baal. Baal doesn't really exist. It's kind of a manifestation based on blood magic and sacrifice in a sense, because all of like Satan, Baal, Baphomet, the devil, Metatron, they are all like kind of like split personalities of Lucifer, right? In a sense, for different purposes. If you've ever seen the movie Split, it's a really good depiction of what happens when someone's trying to rationalize or protect themselves from any sanity of a situation that they find themselves in for whatever reason, whether it's by their own hand or abuse or whatever else, right? So, excuse me. So they were worshiping Baal because of this bloodline that's interconnected with it. And they'll say it themselves, that they come from like the Anunnaki and all this stuff. The Anunnaki is just another word for the Nephilim and the fallen, right? And that bloodline of that, right? So anyway, these people who inevitably, after the Russians tried to ask them in the 8th, or told them in the 8th century, not ask, they were like, after all these complaints for like, a couple thousand years, they said, look, pick one of the 3 Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Muslim, Islam, or Judaism, or we're going to destroy you completely because of all the complaints of what they were doing. So the kings, they decided, or the main king, he decided, okay, we're going to choose Judaism. And they had to force all of their people to adopt it and no more of this Baal worshipping blood magic stuff. They did not. They said they were Judaistic or whatever. I'm sorry for my jargon. I'm not 100% familiar. They became Jewish on the front, but they were still practicing all this stuff. And then they eventually twisted and corrupted Judaism, original Hebrew Judaism, and turned it into what's considered and called Babylonian Talmudism, which is essentially Satan worship. But it's masked and disguised and hidden and contained within Judaism, which is why the Jewish religion doesn't believe that hell exists or that Satan or Lucifer exists. They don't believe it exists whatsoever, and they believe they're a chosen people. Well, the Hebrews, yes, they are God's jewelry. They are the chosen people, but the Hebrews look like you and me. Yeah, they're a Negro, right? And lighter skin like this. They're Northern African. These are the first people. Yes, they were God's first people. It's like this. It just is what it is. I mean, sorry. God apparently destroyed Egypt because they enslaved the Hebrews. Not the Jews, the Hebrews. Who were the Hebrews? Negroes. God destroyed Babylon because of what? They enslaved the Hebrews, and Cyrus II tried to free them. And after he freed them, God destroyed because of the Tower of Babel. Now here we are in America, and they enslaved the Negroes for 400 plus years. And it was the same group of people that were backed and empowered by the fallen and the Nephilim and all this crazy stuff before and after the flood, because they survived. Some survived, yeah, and they have like a crazy like thing about it. It's not for play. It's really a thing. And I know that people are going to be like, oh, this is anti-Semitic. It's like, well, in order to be anti-Semitic, you have to be anti-Semite, but Semites are Hebrews from Jerusalem. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, right? So here we are looking at like where that's turned into, and it's called Zionism now. And they're Ashkenazi, Khazarian. They've infiltrated everything because they've been infiltrating everything since like literally the beginning, since the fall. It's not a game, right? When God told Israel, enough. You guys are worshiping bulls and cows and making blood sacrifice and all this stuff. You put a drought, all this type of stuff. Kept saying you're done. Like according to like even their Bible, they're not supposed to ever have a kingdom at all. And they have to go out. And they have to do the good thing. They're not supposed to be. They can't have their own thing. So, ficto facto, because of the bloodline of Cain being kicked out of that holy land for killing his brother Abel. It's been an underlying reason and thing for the inclusion of humans in this whole thing. And because it's like the humans are the majority of the bloodline of the, I guess, percentage of blood, right? They are like a hybrid species, quite literally, right? I'm part, 6%, nobody's perfect. But it is what it is, okay? And I'm not the type of person that would say something like this just because it's fun to say. You know, I didn't know any of this stuff until I found out I was part Ashkenazi. And I remember saying, you know, it's the best joke never told, and I'll tell it to your audience. How do you know if someone's not a Hebrew? Ashkenazi. Ooh. I mean, ooh. I didn't spell Ashkenazi that way. It's spelled that way. It's spelled basically a play on words of Ashkenazi. But the Nazis tried to kill all the Jews. So who financed the Nazis? Oh, that's right. The Rothschilds, who are Ashkenazi. Why would, what? Wait, what? But it's a thing. Now do your research. YouTube, Google, owned by them. Difficult. Go to BitChute, BitChute.com. BitChute.com. It's a little easier, especially if you go old.bitchute.com, because they put a new one, and I don't know, the deal is it was a little more challenging. So, you know, when I found out all this stuff, and then I found out about the Americas, and it's like, I find it funny that the people that say that they were persecuted and enslaved in all these places, posing as Hebrew people that are not Hebrew people, their bloodline has no bearing. Ficto facto, they always say that, you know, that they're victimized. Okay, well, you know, Louis C.K. has a wonderful stand-up about, of course, but maybe, and he says about like the supporting troops. Of course we should support our troops. Of course. They're young guys, they're out there, they're getting hurt, they come back, we gotta support them, of course. But maybe if you go to someone's country and you get shot, it might be really not that weird. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you get shot and injured by the guy you were just shooting at, it's a little bit your fault. Mm-hmm. Maybe, you know, like, I mean, that's facts. Yeah. Of course, like it's like this. Because at the end of the day, when people go and do stuff, you know, where you're from, I know all about what happened. with the tests and the things that activated the people. I know all about it. I've done tons of research, and I'm very sorry. People in this nation, most of them don't even know. And the ones that perpetrated it, guess who they are, who they work for. Shocker. Ashkenazis and Zionists. And who is Israel? Zionist Ashkenazi. That all have bloodline. Okay, there's like they all have bloodline to Eastern Europe, the same place as the Khazarians, right? All of the people that they have been killing, it's like what, 43 or 45 or 47,000 people, 23,000 of them are children that have been killed in Gaza in less than a year. It's like they're killing the people who actually their DNA is from there. They are they are Hebrew, these Palestinians. Not all, of course, because of migration, but there's a lot that are. So why are they trying to destroy them yet again? Why are they activating white and black dissonance and fighting in America and everywhere else all the time? I mean, there's 3 S's in warfare. I'm an art of war student since I was 6 years old, so I like stratagem. The first S is to separate. Or, they say divide and conquer, right? Separate. The second S is to silence. We just witnessed a worldwide gagging of all of us, muzzling of all of us. And the third is to sweep up the mess so that you can enjoy the spoils of war. So I guess there's 4 because it's the spoils of war. And it's really, really messed up. And the whole world is sitting there pointing a finger at Israel, knowing what they are doing is completely wrong, and it's exposing a whole bunch of stuff. Yet, a lot of people won't even hear the conversation again because it breaks the narrative of what they were told. I know a lot of people that say, my grandmother or grandfather was in Auschwitz. And I'm like, do they have the tattoo? And they say, yes. I'm like, where did they get the tattoo? And they say, well, they got it in Israel because it was never given to them at Auschwitz. I'm like, word. Oh my God. But it's just, this is the thing. The deception, the infiltration, this is the tactic of that. So it's like you really have to understand the game we're playing and what this is. There's many, many layers to this, and there's plans within plans within plans. And since the Khazaria was destroyed in 11 AD, 900 years ago or plus, they really literally swore a 1,000-year blood vengeance against Russia. This is a real thing. I'll send you all the stuff on this. The Khazarian stuff is fascinating. It's like, wow, it's a history that has never been told. But why has the history never been told? Well, his story is written by the winners, right? So the winners isn't necessarily the winner of a war, because a war can be perpetrated by 2 things that are on the same side that are just doing it because they want to do it because it affects things. Right? Which is messed up because it's always us fighting and dying, killing each other for them. It's insanity, right? And what's really wild is that, like, when this is done, all this perpetration of lies and deception. And who is the school system? Well, it was in America and Canada, it was designed by the Rockefellers. The Rockefellers are the cousin of the Rothschild. They are Ashkenazi, Khazarian, bloodline of Cain, the descendants of the kings of Babylon, the descendants of the later pharaohs of Egypt, the descendants of all these places that really have to do with this. You look at the infiltration of all of the royal families and the different names, even Fraser, my clan. Okay, the Highland Frasers, we are never conquered. Not once, but we never expanded. We were happy, we're good. We're fine with our little area, it's fertile, it's good. We try to share the wealth with others. There's Lowland Frasers, which is spelled Frazier, and they are Ashkenazi Jew. But why are they, the Lowland Frasers, spelled this last name? Well, because they ain't us. They killed most of the ones of us that were down the mountain and replaced them. It's ridiculous.
Very ridiculous.
Ridiculous, but this is what we're dealing with. And so it's like, here we go with, all this stuff. And yeah, history and all this jazz has been a big setup for us to not know who we are, not know where we are, even what the earth is, everything, not know what we are. And therefore we have no idea what we're supposed to do. And we end up just infighting each other because it's it's like a reality TV show. I lived in Hollywood for many years and know lots of people in the game. Reality TV is a mess. The way that they do it is they literally give these people alcohol and then cause the problems in order to film it, because that makes for good television. Otherwise, they'd just be bored getting along.
Yeah.
And getting along doesn't make for good television, right? Fighting and arguing and cheating and bullshit. They're like, yeah, that's juicy. It gives them the ratings, you know? But I don't believe this is correct. I don't believe this is the right thing to do. Because, sure, it might be of a great importance to their agenda, but if you're talking about the real, I mean, everything should be done in a way that benefits us all and does things for us as a collective species that gives us an amazing, amazing potential and future. And I believe that it's happened in the past. Look at Tartaria, this you know, kind of like all the big buildings that you see from the 1700s and 1800s. When they say it was all like, you know, oh no, we were carriage and buggy and horses and this, that, and the other. But it's like you look at the technology, and if you really go into that, it's mercury and magnets and copper. And if you take a copper wire and put a magnet in the middle, one of those circle magnets with a hole in the middle, it creates wattage, and you can power a light. As long as the light lasts, it'll power it.
Yeah.
For free. Perpetual energy, right? This is electromagnetic energy. And so I work in Pythagorean mathematics and sonic geometry that I've discovered through music, trying to understand why certain sounds feel certain ways and why songs make us feel ways. It couldn't just be the lyrics or the melody. It couldn't just be the sounds used. It couldn't just be the instruments. It couldn't just be the genre. It had to be something else, because there's a bunch of R&B, but one or two songs will get you. There's a lot of rock and roll, but there's a couple songs that get you, and they get everyone.
Yeah.
Why? And I wanted to know. So I started researching into it and found out about the tuning, and that the tuning of old school instruments in Africa, Asia, South and North America, and Europe, everywhere, were tuned to what's called Pythagorean 432, which is like center A, right? A4. And what's interesting is that that's based off of geometry, halving and doubling. But when you look at like a triangle, the internal angles are 60, 60, 60, which equal 180 degrees. 180 degrees is like, okay, so what's 180 cycles per second for vibration? 180 hertz is a F sharp bass note, right? Then you look at a circle and a square, and it's 360 some angles, right? The degree some angle. 360 is another F sharp, one octave higher. Then you go to a pentagon, 540. It's a C major, and etc., 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 etc. Every single equilateral shape, whether it be two-dimensional, three-dimensional, or fourth-dimensional, which is like depicted as sacred geometry, but that actually connotates like expansion and contraction, like motion, time, right? Fourth dimension is like time and space, right? So it's like when you have those things, and they're all equaling a note, and then you put all those notes together from those shapes, and it makes like a oh my goodness, I forgot the name. It's like a seventh, right? So there's 7 notes at once, and it's like when people hear about the angel chord, like that, and it's like beautiful. There's bass, there's mid, there's high, but it's a beautiful chord, right? This is called the angel note. It's something 7th, I forgot, in the key of F sharp, I believe. I'm sorry if I get it wrong. There's a lot of information I had. But it's like, it's a beautiful, beautiful chord. And so I'm like, this is crazy. So then I'm listening to, modern music, and I'm doing road trips, and I'm a touring artist. So, I'm listening to music as I travel. And when I'm listening to modern music, mostly, not all, but, good 95% of it, I felt like this anxiety all the time. But when I'm listening to old school music, like pre-1980, like proper disco or soul or funk or, even some house music, but like African rhythms, like, proper, what was it, Fela Kuti? Is that his name? Fela Kuti? Fela Kuti? Amazing, right? Like this kind of music is just because it's roots, like Bob Marley and this kind of stuff, like just whatever, right? And I realized that this music, I wasn't feeling anxiety. The time went by but when I'm listening to modern music, everything's like, it's pressure. It's like when I'm driving on a road trip, I want to pull over all the time. When I'm listening to old school, I'm like, oh shit, it's been 5 hours. Amazing. So I wanted to know what this was doing. So what is standard music doing versus like proper concert tuning, Pythagorean music doing, right? And I was looking at its effect on water molecules. There's a great test from Dr. Emoto. Funny because my artist name is Motoe and his name is Emoto. Hilarious.
I think I've seen a video of that guy.
Yeah, where he says like about love and gratitude and thankful versus like hatred. I hate you, I'll kill you. And the shape of the water molecule was literally hugely different. All the positive stuff was like beautiful snowflake looking, perfect geometry. But all the others, the negative, it was like a glob. It was like all broken up and messed up. Really, really interesting because it's the connotation, the intention you have, the tone you have, everything is important. It's hard to say I love you and say it with a negative way. It's hard to say. You can say I hate you, like, oh my god, whatever, bro. But it doesn't have the same thing because hate is not, I think, a fundamental thing that we have in us. I think hatred is learned, love is born. Yeah, that's why babies, they love their mother. They look at their mom and dad like, right? They don't look at you like, oh God, you again, right? That comes later. You're a father, you'll see. But then it comes back to love, you know. That's my mom, you know. Your mom will tell you this. So it's like, you know, I think that humans, we have a chance to do something remarkable, but we have to know the truth, the real truth, in order to know what is happening, and then we can just work to stop it. Because remember, these elites and these people that are perpetrating negative things in our lives and trying to keep us blind and keep us at war and keep us against each other, there's not as many of them as there are of us. It's just that most of us just don't know what's happening, and they're getting hit with so many things that they want to believe and want to trust. This is why I think people are inherently good. Otherwise, they wouldn't trust the news.
Yeah.
You know, if people were inherently bad, right away they'd be like, whatever, bro. For everything, right? For everything. Be like, oh, God is great. They'd be like, whatever, bro. You know, be like, oh, this is soup. They'd be like, whatever, bro. Like, for everything, right? But instead, they're like, oh, my doctor, he really cares, or she really cares. Oh, the politician, like, we voted them in. They work for us, right?
Yeah.
Wrong. These people, you know, they forget that the left wing and the right wing belong to the same bird. It's an old Native American saying. And the only way to kill the bird is shoot it in the face like everything else. Because there is no choosing of a wing. It takes both wings to fly.
Yeah.